Thursday, April the 18th. Lake level, well, this is what the lake level was early this morning. It was just over normal, a little over 9:15, and now it's come up a foot since the wee hours this morning. We've had an incredible amount of rain. The whole area has. I think they've got it from Texas clear to St. Louis. So I don't know how much the lake is going to come up, but I'd say it's going to come up a bunch because it's come up a foot within the last 24 hours. Just all depends how much water they dump out of like Bull Shoals into the Mississippi. Depends on how much they'll hold in Table Rock. But everybody around us got rain, so we haven't even seen the lake rise yet compared to what it's gonna, because all the rivers are so full. So rather than to get into a whole lot about what we've been doing the past week, things are definitely going to change. Now, the fish were on beds. They were starting to move in pretty heavy, even though the water temperature was mid 50s, 55 to 57, which temperature-wise was a little early for some of the fish coming in, but they've been overdue. I think a lot of times that them fish got a clock inside of them that they start going by the lengths of the days as far as moving up to spawn, and then we got a full moon coming up, I think, next week. So, the fish are in the backs of the creek spawning in the water. Here and at Bull Shoals, I fished at Bull Shoals last weekend. At both lakes, the water was as clear as I'd ever seen it. Table Rock, I seen beds down there in 15, 17 foot of water. You can just see clear as a bell. Well, that's going to change. I don't know what's going to happen to those fish if the lake comes up 3, 4, 5 feet. But as far as the fishing, it's going to open up a whole new deal. We've been catching them on Carolina rig, split shot rig, little shaky heads in the back of the pockets in the spawning area, and the fluke. I'm saying some of that fluke bite might go away because of the water clarity. I think what's going to play a big key is a spinnerbait, square bill crankbait. Now, the only bad thing tonight is the temperature is going to get down to 32 degrees. So that's really going to throw a wrench in between the water level coming up, the mud coming in, and then having a pretty hard temperature drop. So I don't have a perfect answer for you as far as what to do, except the person's going to have to try a lot of things. Now, with that water coming up, what's worked in the past for us, it's a real good time to throw a spinnerbait because the fish are already in the backs of the creek spawning. So it's not a matter of waiting for the fish to come in there. They're not going anywhere because the water temperature's dropping. Now, all that water that came in today will be really warm. I didn't go out today because of the weather conditions, but if I did, what I would have done was ran to the back of any creek or pocket that had a lot of water coming into it, and I probably would have thrown a ½ ounce to a 3/4 ounce spinnerbait, with big blades, with all that water coming in. Because like I say, there's already a lot of fish back there spawning, so all you got to do is trigger, get them to bite. Now, when that water first comes in, it's going to be all chocolate mud and full of leaves and debris. But if you go far enough back up into the creeks, now that the rain has stopped, the water that's coming in should be clear. So it'll go from a mud line to clear water, and that's where I would try to key on, is where that difference is on the water. And a spinnerbait that's worked good for us before, it's called coleslaw, but it's a ½ ounce. You can throw a 3/8 or a ½ ounce. Today, like I say, I would have thrown a 3/4 ounce with some really big blades, something to make a lot of flash. Now, after the initial running, I'm going to go a little bit smaller blades. But this, if you got real chocolate, muddy water, this works real good. It even works real good in just like a green tint. But it's got a little orange and chartreuse in it, and it's got all white blades. Chartreuse and white will work as well. It'll work good. Now, there's going to be water in the bushes. It's going to be time to tie on like a creature bait. As soon as the water settles down and stops rising, it shouldn't take the fish very long to get up into that new cover, because a lot of them, like I say, are already shallow. Now, a lot of times when that does come up, you'll see a lot of fish will tend to go to the old shoreline, which, you know, is right about 9:15 right now. So if the water comes up, 4 to 5 foot, then you're going to want to try to key on that, 4 to 8 foot depth of water. And that's a good depth to throw the spinnerbait, and also a square bill. And, a lot of different square bills that'll work, but like I'd use a Strike King 1.5, or even a 2.5, or an RC. Here's an RC 1.5, but the Strike King is about the same size, and here's a 2.5. And depending on the color of the water, if the water isn't too dirty, I'd use like a sexy shad or a chartreuse sexy shad. White is actually always really good in dirty water, or chartreuse and black. So there's going to be a lot of different variables as far as with the changing conditions. But even before the water came up and we had this rain, we were still having to fish a lot of different techniques. Now, one thing that we were doing the last week or so that should hold up, like a lot of the main lake isn't going to get real dirty. Some of the creeks will, but as it gets to the main lake, it'll kind of filter down. The upper rivers are going to be chocolate real quick. And it depends on how much water they dump out of the lake, depends on how fast that mud line will come down to the other parts of the lake. But what had been working pretty consistent has been a jerkbait out on them real flat main lake gravel points, like from Baxter up to the dam. A lot of the same areas that we catch smallmouth and stuff on, and a lot of these fish were just coming up out of the deeper water, starting to stage, getting ready to go back into the creeks. And for the most part, I set in the boat in 20 to 25 foot of water and throwing either a Spro or a Lucky Craft, something in here's one I've got tied on. It's like a chartreuse sexy shad or a Spro Blue Bandit. And we weren't having to let the bait set still very long. We were working it pretty aggressively. But the key was we had to have wind because the water was so clear. Now hopefully with some of this rain it won't be as clear. And the wind, we may not need the wind as much as we did before. But in them same areas, if we didn't have any wind, we were able to Carolina rig or a split shot rig. And one rig I was rigging up for a lot of my customers that don't throw a bait caster is I was rigging up like a miniature Carolina rig. And basically I'm just throwing this on 8-pound line with a 3/8 ounce weight and about a 2 foot leader. But what this does with this heavier weight, it lets you get down and stay on the bottom a little bit better, stay in contact with the bottom. Now, what I was using was a fish doctor or a centipede will work good. Also, like maybe a baby brush hog or a small lizard. And green pumpkin, watermelon red, watermelon candies is hard colors to beat. Now, one little tip I'm gonna show you is on a spinning reel. I notice a lot of people that fish with me, they tend to have a lot more problem with loops on their spinning reels than I do. And I think a couple keys to help you get away from the loops is as soon as you cast the spinning reel and you've got that bail open like that, that's when you get most of the loops in your reel. That line has got memory on it and it's trying to come off just like that. So what you want to do is right after you cast, and what I do as soon as the bait hits the water, I flip the bail over by hand instead of doing it with the reel handle. I find I got less loops coming off as the bait's sinking, and I think you'll find that you have a lot less problem. Another thing, I seen this on YouTube the other night, is Aaron Martin does it. And when you do start getting a lot of twist in the line, the best way to usually get it out is cut everything off, drag your line behind the boat, and reel it in with tension. Now that'll help. But he had a neat little trick as far as for a quick remedy, and I've really found it to work well. But take your bait off, go ahead and make a long cast. Then, as you're reeling in, take 3 fingers, hold it on your line real tight. And what you want to do is, depends how you got your drag set, but you want to hold on to that line so tight that your drag is almost going off. Now, one of the things you got to make sure you do is you got to keep your rod tip in the water. You want a lot of water on the line, because otherwise you're going to burn your fingers. But if you'll just take and reel that in all the way to the boat, you know, real hard with the line between your fingers, when you get about almost all the way in with about 5 to 8 foot left, just pick it up out of the water, just let the line spin to the right, you know, it'll sit there and spiral, then let it go back the other way, it'll get a lot of the twist out. And I found that to be a pretty slick little deal. You know, it's a quick fix, but it seems to work for about an hour or so. Another deal that really works on the spinning reels is this reel magic. You know, at the end of the day, spray this on your line before you go out the next day, and it really helps get the memory out. Bass Pro's got some stuff. It's KVD, line, something or other. It'll work real well. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of things changing this week. I'll have a lot more precise report for you next week as far as what we did with these changing conditions. But it's not; these fish aren't going to move that are in there spawning, even with a couple cold nights. They may get a little sluggish, but they're not moving anywhere. And as soon as that sun gets up with all this stained water coming in, the water is going to warm up quick, and it's going to open up a lot of different things to fish. The main thing I'd key on is the creeks in the areas that the fish have been spawning. So till next week, good luck, good fishing.